We turn now to two officials who actually run elections in their states. Matthew Dunlap is the Secretary of State for Maine. He's a Democrat, and he's also a member of the President's Commission, and he was at today's meeting. We're also joined by Michele Reagan. She's a Republican, and she is Arizona's Secretary of State. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Matthew, I'd love to start with you first. What is your general hope that this commission, what do you hope it will accomplish?
Well, my general hope is that we actually do something to bolster voter confidence in how we conduct elections in this country. I think we have an awful lot to be proud of. No one's questioning the legitimacy of the outcome of the 2016 election. There are some lingering questions about how elections have been conducted, who was able to vote legally or not, and I think, based on my experience in the state of Maine, I think we can be very, very proud of what our local election officials have done to make sure that their neighbors get to exercise their democratic right of self-governance.
Michele Reagan, I know you are a supporter broadly of this commission and its aims. As you know, the commission was set up in part because of the president's concern that there had been some voter fraud in the past election. I'm curious, you were running the election in Arizona back in 2016. Did you have any instances of fraud in your state?
Well, I can't speak, obviously, for other states, but I know in Arizona we have a number of measures that we use to prevent fraud. And that's not to say fraud never happens. Certainly, when we hear allegations of that, we take it very seriously. But it's important to note Arizona has some laws on the books that keep it very safe from fraud, massive fraud. One is the showing proof of ID at the polling places. Another is proof of citizenship when registering to vote. A lot of states don't have these laws, and so speaking from Arizona's point of view, coupled with the fact that we also participate already in interstate cross-check systems for instances of double voting or double registration, we're pretty confident in Arizona that we run a really good election.
Matthew Dunlap, as I mentioned in the report prior to this, the commission asked all the states for some types of voter information, and there was a lot of concern. Many states pushed back. I understand Maine did not share its information. Can you explain to me, what is the concern? What are you worried about?
Well, we're not really worried about anything. We just followed the law. The request that came from the commission, which as commission members, we did not review the full text of the letter that went out. We did agree that the information that should be requested, not demanded, and it should only be that information that would be publicly available to anyone legally entitled to obtain it under those particular state laws. When we got the request, the letter said that be advised that any information that you provide will be made publicly available for anyone to inspect. Maine election law specifies that anyone who is qualified to access the voter file must keep it confidential. And that is directory language. Making the list available is discretionary under the law. So with that direction, it was a mathematical equation for us. We simply could not provide it under those circumstances, and so we did not.
Michele Reagan, do you have concerns about this database being compiled here in Washington, D.C.?
Well, absolutely we have concerns. And again, in Arizona, we just looked to the statutes and the law to tell us exactly what we were going to have to do or not do. And it's pretty clear that, again, just like in Maine, you can't take the information via a public records request with the intent of sharing it or posting it publicly or disseminate, giving it out. That letter specifically said in there, as my good friend mentioned, that it could become public. It could become publicly available. That's against Arizona law. So it was a pretty easy decision from a legal standpoint to not release the information.
Matthew Dunlap, what about this larger concern that has been raised by some people that this commission and its mission is going to be used to justify further national crackdown on voting rights? What do you make of that?
That's one of my favorite questions to get out of all this, is that somehow we are trying to undo the electoral process. My position is that you have these lingering questions that have been around for a while now about illegal activity around elections. Sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. I have full confidence that everything that's been claimed will probably be largely debunked, and what we will find will probably be the product of mistakes and errors and unintended actions that were never meant to become felonies. So I think, with that understanding, I think what we're going to find is that we have a really pretty good system that's very, very decentralized, which actually adds to its level of security against some of the allegations that we've heard about, like the Russian Federation getting involved in hacking our elections. I think the systems that we have in place, which are run by local elections officials, actually will be found to work very, very well, and that American voters should feel pretty good about the systems that help us select our leadership and decide issues.
Michele Reagan, you heard Matthew here say that he believes the commission will largely debunk many of these claims. But just today, the co-chairman of the commission, Chris Kobach, said on MSNBC that he says we may never know whether or not Hillary Clinton, in fact, won the popular vote. I mean, that is an implication that there's very likely the potential that 3 million illegal votes were cast. If the head of the commission is making that kind of a statement, does that concern you at all about the thrust of this commission?
Well, what really concerns me is the good work that the commission could be doing, and I have high hopes that they will look forward to some of these suggestions that states are making. I would hope that this commission takes what states are doing and determines what is working best so they can share it with other states. We're open to wanting to see this commission succeed in helping us run better elections. I hope that that's the direction they take. Another thing that was very, very important in Arizona is, I mentioned our proof of citizenship when registering to vote. Our state law is in direct violation of a federal rule that says we must accept federal forms that don't have proof of citizenship. We need this question answered. This has been all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and is still unanswered for Arizona and other states. That's some really positive work that this commission could also be looking at and make it really, a fruitful discussion for everyone. Absolutely, because, there are so many people, and I know in Arizona, and I'm sure in Maine and around the country, they don't understand that already we do cross-checks. They don't understand already that we do random hand counts after each vote. They don't understand when they hear Russian hacking, and our state was hacked. We don't know if it was by Russians, but it was a server in Ukraine. But they don't understand that the voting machines aren't hooked up to an internet, and so that actual vote is safe. There's so many things we could be doing positive to reassure voters all around the country, no matter if they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, that, we've got this.
All right, Michele Reagan, Matthew Dunlap, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.